welcome to this Ask Me Anything session with Amy Radin. This is a conversation, right? So, of course, any question you have, any comment, just help us shape the conversation. Amy, I'm glad you're with us. We have an important topic, right? We have the topic of what can we do as innovators, the things that we're good at. How can we help our core business? So, maybe Amy, for those of you on the line that don't know you, can you give us a 30 seconds introduction of who's Amy?
Sure. So first of all, I'm saying hello to everybody. Thanks for joining. I am based outside of New York City, so like just about everybody here in quarantine right now. I spent many years in the corporate world, starting out in marketing and product development at American Express, and then ended up leading the digital transformation of Citi's credit card business for the U.S. I became Citigroup's first global chief innovation officer and held the title of Chief Innovation Officer at E-Trade Financial as well, which some of you may know. Ended my corporate career in the insurance industry about 6 years ago, and since 2014 have been doing advisory work and board work for everybody from early stage startups up to large companies, and also in 2018 published a book that just won a big award called The Changemakers Playbook, How to Seek, Seed, and Scale Innovation in Any Company. So really thrilled to be here and great to be supporting this event.
Thank you, Amy. So when we pre-discussed this conversation, we talked about all these things that innovators excel at and then how they are so crucial now for like the business at large. So we had a couple of quote unquote skills or competencies, if you will. And the one I found probably most interesting, so let's start with that, is overturning orthodoxies, right? Why do you think that's such an important skill set for businesses today? And also how then we as innovators can, bring that to the rest of the organization?
Right. Well, we all know as corporate innovators and as innovators any place that one of the biggest challenges when you see an opportunity in the market that you want to pursue is not the opportunity itself. It's not the lack of technology. There's technology that can do just about anything. It's the ingrained beliefs in the organization that you're part of about how things have always been done and what it takes to succeed. The exciting thing for innovators at this point in time is that all of the orthodoxies under which we've been, not just running our businesses, but living our lives have been challenged. So in a way, there's never been a better time to challenge and overturn orthodoxies. I think there's a lot of fear in the environment, so it will take incredible leadership to help people see the path. But it's a great time to be an innovator.
And maybe can you give an example? I mean, of course, I think we've heard this example of, every company has now done 5 years of transformation, digital transformation, in 2 weeks or whatever. So I guess that's one of these orthodoxies, right? One of these things where previously this was always looked at upon maybe someday, not necessarily now. Can you give another example of what you have seen?
Sure. So I'll say what I've seen recently or in the past, in past experience.
Whenever you think, whatever's relevant.
Sure. So my team overturned a huge orthodoxy at Citigroup when we introduced an online collections capability into the credit card business. And it was an interesting thing because I really believe that innovation starts with the customer insight. You're able to observe a problem that people have that they are struggling with, and with the rational and emotional underpinnings of the problem. And we were in a business where the entire success of the business hinged on collections. In a credit card business, that's what profitability and the balance sheet comes down to. And we wanted to introduce a digital experience into the collections process. And at least in the US market, collections is all about collectors calling you on the phone. And think about the embarrassment of that experience, because most people want to pay their bills. Something bad happens that they can't. And we said, well, what if we give people a means to settle up their payments online? It could remove the embarrassment factor. And I'll tell you, the people in collections thought we were nuts. It actually took us 2 years to convince them to give us a file of names to run just a small test on. Because I come from a direct marketing background, so I'm all about tiny tests to find big insights and big business opportunities. And they finally gave us a file for whom they had no phone numbers, so no downside. And that test, of course, was wildly successful. It was, the whole issue was based on solving the emotional problem. And bankers like to think about dollars and cents, and we're thinking about there's an emotional issue here. And as luck would have it, that the results came out just heading into the financial crisis. And long story short, online collections is a global capability that every lending institution pretty much has in place now. And Citi accelerated the rush to roll it out globally because, when the financial crisis hit, they really needed that capability. So I feel like we're at the dawn of another set of those kinds of opportunities. Mm-hmm. And so I would encourage you to look at that list of concepts and ideas that you really believe in that maybe have been derailed by the internal orthodoxies of your business, and understand which ones can be brought back now because they may really help connect to a pressing business problem that has arisen out of the pandemic. And you will still really need to help people, like help them take the steps through, leaving behind something that they relied upon for something new. But there'll be a lot more open-mindedness because we don't have a choice. We all have to change.
Is there a particular quote-unquote strategy or a set of tactics that you advise on going about this? Because I guess orthodoxies also come with politics, right? So how would you go about it?
Yes. I think it's very important to build alliances internally. And I've always, I guess also coming from a direct marketing background, I'm a huge believer in segmentation. And I think you've got to, what I've always done and what I think works is look around the organization and think about, who are the believers, who are the converts. There are people when I worked at E-Trade, I used to keep a list at my desk of people I called the hand raisers. So anybody who reached out to me proactively, to me, that was a behavior that demonstrated interest and an appetite to get on board. So understand who are the real believers, and if they are the people who are willing to advocate or control the resources or the decision-making authority for some of the things you want to pursue, maybe not the thing that you think is the biggest, but to help you get traction. The other thing that I think is, as hard as it is bringing people to the table. Mm-hmm. I'm a big believer in including those people and even resistors. It's good to know upfront who the naysayers and resistors are going to be as you're formulating your strategies and your plans. Have those people co-create. I think people in large political organizations are used to the games people play around closing people out of things in order to protect their ideas. And I think take the high ground, bring people in. And that was a tactic that I've used with incredible success in every organization I'm in, is ask people what they think and bring them to the discussions and really make them your co-creators. Success has many, one of my former colleagues used to say, success has many fathers. I think success has many mothers too, but make them part of it and you will move forward. I think also the better you're able to align what you recommend as priorities with the business's most pressing pain points, the easier it will be to build sort of that army of the willing. And they may not be the programs and the projects that were the top priorities on your list 60 or 90 days ago. So you've got to be willing, bring your innovation skills to solving the supply chain issue that many companies are having. So I think you've got to take those skills, turn them very much against what the business's most pressing issues are now. And you will increase your chance of finding a willing audience to leverage your skills.
So one of these other skills that you mentioned in our pre-discussion is, on the one hand, the ability to kind of look at 10,000 feet, the big trends, as well as to go in conversation with actual clients and understand trends there. So on both, of course, is a talent that I guess is rare in most organizations, and let's say in core functions of the business. So how can we apply that to core business challenges at the moment?
Yeah. And I think that's really, really critical now because let's face it, businesses, even on a good day, large companies are engineered for operating efficiency and very much around getting the short-term results. And look at the short-term issues that most companies are dealing with today. I just came, being a New Yorker, I read the New York Times. I just finished flipping through the paper because it's breakfast time here. And it's just one story after another around the crises that different companies are facing, plus the health issues, of course. And so the tendency to put heads down and focus on the short term is going to be even higher. I really think that the companies that pull through this and are well repositioned for a successful reemergence of what we're going through are the companies who are not only able to think about what to do now, but the companies who are already anticipating what to do next and what to do later. And we excel as innovators as what is happening next and later. And I think in the next bucket right now is how are we going to reopen? You're already seeing that here, and obviously curbside pickup, delivery. Okay, that's interesting, but that's sort of business as usual. That's, what is going to happen later? And if you start to look at the trends, just the workforce at a high level, the workforce trends around people are realizing like, wow, maybe I can work at home at least part-time. And employers are realizing I don't need to bring everybody to the office every day. And then customers are realizing there are things they can do without, they can do online, they're switching brand loyalties. There's an incredible amount of turbulence. So if you just look at what's happening to the employee experience and what is happening to the customer experience and start to project out the trends, I think there's a very important role we can play in helping our organizations not lose sight of the fact that later will be now pretty soon, and the decisions we are making about what to do now and what to do next are going to have unintended consequences for what we're able to do later. And so you can play a very important role in that space in sort of connecting the dots to shaping the future.
There's one more skill I want to highlight, and then, of course, let's also make sure that we address some of the questions from folks on the line. Sure. So the other skill, which kind of follows this one, is experimentation, right? How can you quickly find out if whatever you think makes sense, it actually does make sense? So, what is your advice, especially on how? I mean, this is a mindset, right? This is not just a skill. It's a completely different way of doing things. So, how would you suggest folks to bring that mindset to the core processes, the core business?
It's first of all the need for experimentation. The need there has never been a more important time to be out talking to customers. First of all, to talk to customers to really validate the hunches at the management table and the hunches in our virtual workspaces are correct. So really getting the customer insight, not just about what people are doing, but about how they're feeling, how they're behaving, and then starting to translate into very quick experiments. And obviously, the ability to experiment now is going to rely upon remote exposure of prototypes. This is nothing new. 8 or 9 years ago, when I was at E-Trade, we stood up an online community and we were prototyping online. So I think encourage your colleagues and show them the value of exposing even crude prototypes to your customers so you can get legitimate feedback. And one thing I've always had to do a lot of, having worked in highly regulated industries, is a lot of people in a regulated company who I used to joke are paid to say no. Right. A lot of approvers. And I think bring them into the prototyping process, show them how you're doing it, and they will realize it's not so mysterious. I think part of the fear and what holds people back is just the unknown, and the work that we do remains very much of a black box. So make your internal approvers part of the prototyping process. Involve them in friendly user testing. Make them your friendly user group. And it's amazing how many people will come on board if you just take those very simple steps and kind of take down your own anxiety about, gee, what are they going to do if they get involved? Just get them involved.
Anyone on the line, feel free to unmute and or get on camera if you want and ask any question you have for Amy, because as you sense, she has a wealth of experience that she's more than willing to share with you. So feel free to unmute. And if you don't have a question, that's fine as well. I have still a list, Amy, so no worries. But for all of you on the line, feel free to just unmute and ask your question. There seems to be not a question. Feel free to just interrupt whenever you have one. So let me continue, because we're now talking about a couple of these quote unquote skills and mindsets that we as innovators have built as in terms of, that's like a muscle we've built, and now, hey, let's apply it to the core business. The challenge is, of course, that everyone in the core business thinks that everything, everything, but really what, the only thing that matters now is surviving and serving whatever current customers you have. So how do you manage that friction? At least, I'm not even sure if there's a friction, but I guess it's perceived as a friction. How would you manage that friction?
I think it's so much. There's so much value in bringing customer insights back to the table about what's really going on. I mean, I'm amazed. I saw a study a couple of years ago when I was working on a big keynote presentation for last fall, and I came across a study that was published in Harvard Business Review, where a team had gone out and interviewed 300 or 400 very diverse executives about how they spent their time. And only in aggregate, only 3% of their time was spent with customers. And I find that really shocking. And I work a lot with startups right now, and they don't have fancy budgets. They don't have big budgets to hire market research companies to get between them and the customer. And so successful founders are out talking to their customers all the time in their environments, right? And I think that bringing the insight to the table and showing how customers are reacting to feedback, really important. And then there's always the less resources you need to do things, the easier it is to kind of push things through. I learned a lot from one of my division presidents at American Express, who I worked under years ago, who also said, ask forgiveness, not permission. And when I was asked to take on innovation responsibilities at Citi, I was not given any budget. And I was, you don't say no to the CEO. He told me to do it. And I carved out, I found ways. And I think now with the tool sets that exist for prototyping on our own, there's a lot you can do with very little budget to expose ideas to customers, get the feedback, bring it back to your colleagues. It's the best way to win them over. But remember, they're spending very little time with their customers on average. Think about that 3% number. So you raise that bar, that by itself can have a huge impact.
Let me just pause and see if anyone on the line wants to ask a question. I have a final one for you, Amy, but if you are on the line, you have a burning question, just unmute and ask the question, please. Okay, so my final one. Yash, I think are you unmuted? No. Oh, there's one over here.
Yeah, sorry, sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, wonderful. So, Amy, thanks so much for sharing your experiences. What I was looking to understand was how you're being able to leverage new tools to drive change, and be able to cut through the resistance that is as old as mold.
Wait, you're breaking up a little bit. Could you repeat it, or Hans? Did you get the question?
Yeah, my question. Are you able to hear me, Amy?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Sure. So my question is about what new tools are you using to drive change and bring everybody on board faster, because the speeds, the duration of the old change management programs that we ran have been shrunk from years to months, weeks. So what new tools are we having for new timelines?
Right. Well, that's really interesting. And Hans will love my answer since I'm going to mention one of the conference sponsors. One of the companies that I'm doing advisory work with is a CX experience company called Tribe CX. And we are doing work with some, globally known brands where we've switched our entire sort of concept development collaboration process to online. And we're using Mural, which is a fantastic tool for whiteboarding and collaboration. And it's such a fresh way to bring people into a discussion. Takes a little bit of a learning curve, but not bad. But it's just so refreshing and such a nice break from PowerPoint and traditional whiteboarding and stuff that I think, I would look at that. Because sometimes just changing the tool and giving people another way to participate, especially now when we're all homebound, has really, people have found it fun and very inspirational. So I think if you're looking to bring people together for a brainstorm, or just to pull ideas out of people and show they're being listened to, it's a great tool.
Thanks so much.
That's just recently. But I do think, to your point about things taking so long, in my experience, that taking so long has always been because of approvals. And just you have to go through the existing machine to make things work. Make the approvers part of the process from day one of it. They have to come to the table not as approvers, but as people who are contributing to the development of whatever it is you're trying to advance. So everybody has to obviously bring their expertise, but they have to come as sort of with a degree of neutrality. They're not there with their approver stamp. And I think that starts to wear down some of what typically takes so much time. So I hope those two suggestions help.
Maybe my final question to you, Amy. On the one hand, you could say this is indeed, quote unquote, the best time for innovators because, we've been, quote unquote, trained for this and, we're supposed to lead in this. But still, I guess also even more so than before, it's never an easy journey. What is your advice for us to stay kind of, sane and stay on track, if you will?
Yeah, and I this is a question that I take very personally because I was Citi's Global Chief Innovation Officer at the start of the financial crisis, and my role and my team were one of the first groups eliminated as Citi was bailing out the boat. And so I reflect on that a lot at this time. And I think to what I said earlier, taking the time to understand very clearly what the core business most significant pain points are now. And you may have to go down a few levels to really understand, okay, say it's supply chain. Okay, well, what about the supply chain? And then what about? You gotta really get at it and demonstrate to the organization how your skill set can make a big impact against those priorities. So do your exploratory internally to really dig deep and aim your skills at those. Because you won't be, this is a time when people are clearly restructuring, cutting budgets. There will be a tendency in many businesses to see what the innovation teams do as maybe not so important now. So the projects may be less, your pet projects may be less important, but your skills are critical. So I'd separate the projects from the skills and show how you can bring your skills to the really urgent priorities. Take the time to understand what those truly are, several levels below what people are expressing on the surface.
Amy, is LinkedIn the best way for folks to reach out to you for follow-up questions?
Absolutely. Just Amy at amyradin.com. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and always go to my website.
Thanks a lot, Amy, for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Yeah, to all of you on the line, indeed, the next sessions are starting actually in a couple of minutes. So make sure to go back to the session space. There's 2 workshops starting just now. So see you there. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.